I'd like to think that material things don't make you happy. You know, when you buy something new, you might get that instant gratification, but in the long term, it doesn't actually fill a void that doesn't come from having a nice house.
Liz, welcome to Reset.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So good to have you here. I feel like some people might recognise you from TV, others might recognise you from social media, but for anyone meeting you for the first time, can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, primarily I'm a journalist. I've been doing it for nearly 2 decades now, and I've worked in print, TV and digital media. But more recently, I've been specialising in real estate, and I'm currently the News Corp Queensland real estate editor. And sort of more recently, took on a separate business on the side as a property presenter. So sort of doing walkthroughs of luxury homes or new developments. And that's something that has really sort of resonated with people on social media, particularly during COVID when I started. And so, yeah, I've sort of building that up a little bit on the side as well.
From the outside, it looks like to a lot of people you have their dream job. Can you talk to me a little bit about the path it took to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, it's definitely not as glamorous as it looks. It's been a really hard slog, actually. Sometimes I look at the generation coming up now and they just go straight into doing influencing or something, and I'm just like, oh, I missed the boat there. Because, yeah, I went to uni straight out of school and studied journalism, and then I got a job a year into my degree. And at the time, I mean, it still is. It's very hard to get a job as a journalist. So they sort of convince you to just do work experience when you can and take any jobs that you get offered. So I got a job at a rural newspaper and started there, and also finished the degree part-time. And so back then, yeah, I was doing 5 stories a day every day, and you'd go out to every single one of them and interview. So it was long days. But yeah, I loved it and did that for a while, and then thought I'd give TV a go. And so went to Sydney and worked for Sky News, initially as a producer and then on the road as a reporter. I do work on weekends doing reporting because it's also hard to get into TV. So you sort of have to wait for someone to be sick to find that opportunity to go on air, because generally most people who are on air want to keep those spots. And so, yeah, I'd just work any extra hours I had just to get an opportunity to do that. And then eventually had to fill in for someone on air. You sort of just had to make it or break it. And yeah, I got an opportunity there and started doing some presenting work, presenting the news, mostly for Sky, and some political panels and interviews and that kind of thing. They do a lot of political stuff, if you know Sky. And then I got a bit homesick, so I came back to Brisbane and set up the Brisbane bureau here for Sky and did that for about 3 years. But that was also because it's like a smaller bureau coming from Sydney. I often had to do my own filming, so I was actually a video journalist as well. So I'd be filming myself on the road as well as doing a live cross and then writing a package. So that was really hard. And when people say that, TV is easy, it's just really not. It's really, really hard. And then I ended up going back to newspapers almost because that was just so hard. And it was so unpredictable. Like I'd get a phone call at 4 a.m. saying there's a house fire on the Gold Coast, we need you there for a live cross at 6 a.m. And you just have to, you'd be stressing, getting your head across it and having to get there and do it. And then you might be called off to something else completely different in the afternoon, like a political story, and you have to get your head across that. And then, yeah, it was just nuts. So, yeah, that's tough. But the experience was incredible. And it means, I think, most situations aren't that stressful anymore after you've done live TV in that kind of a circumstance. And so that's been good, I suppose. So I've been able to use those skills to be able to do the property presenting I do. And, the skills of talking on camera without needing an auto cue often, just being able to talk off the cusp, that's a skill that I've just learnt from years of doing live TV. And it's something that doesn't come naturally to everyone. It's really hard, and I've worked really hard at that. So when people say, "Oh, I can't believe how easy it is," it's not. There's been a lot of years of planning to do that, and yeah. But I've really been loving being able to do a bit of both. So I write, even though I've got a team under me, I still do a lot of writing on real estate stories in newspapers, and then on the side, yeah, I get to see some amazing homes and properties and talk about those, which is great as well. So it's been a long road of getting here. It's definitely been hard work.
Yeah, wow. I feel like from the outside it would be easy for so many people to be like, oh, Liz, she's so lucky. But luck is absolute hard work, blood, sweat and tears in disguise.
No, it had nothing to do with it, really. I've had to work hard for every opportunity I've been given. And yeah, I think often in life at some point you do have to do that. Like a lot of things will fall into your lap and you'll get some great opportunities and you should take them. But I always think hard work gets recognised in the end and will get you where you want to be. So
yeah, definitely. And so now you're very much in the world of property and real estate. I feel like when I was living in London, the topic of property came up every now and then, but it wasn't top of mind for a lot of people. Moving back to Australia, literally every group of friends you catch up with, it's like, who's buying a house? Who's renovating? Are you rent vesting? Like, what are we doing? It's just, Australians are obsessed with property.
We are. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? And like, as you said, when I lived in London for a couple of years as well, no one really cared. Like, everyone's renting. Everyone's more worried about, their next trip away. Yeah. And if they've got children, they're renting a tiny apartment, and they just deal with it. But here, we are obsessed. It's like a national sport to go to an auction or watch auctions on Saturdays or to just look at property. We call it property porn at the paper. So whenever I'm like, oh, we need to get some property porn up, get some more people looking at that. It's just like a beautiful home. People just love the voyeurism, I guess, of looking through what someone else has. But I think it's partly a societal problem. Like, we have a lot of pressure, I think, from a young age that the great Australian dream, that we must own our own home. And it kind of comes with that whole, you're needing to get married, needing to have 2.5 kids. It's for some reason other countries don't have it as badly as we seem to, and you only know that once you get out of Australia and travel a bit. But it's a bit of a shame because it does mean that it's become very much the haves and the have-nots at the moment, because it is so hard to get into the property market. Sydney's the second most expensive country for property in the world after Hong Kong. It's ridiculous and it is unsustainable, I think. There's got to be some sort of correction at some point. It's the topic of conversation. Everyone talks about what home they're looking to buy, and I think you just want more and more as well. Like, social media doesn't help. You see someone with a lovely home and you think, oh, I need that home, or I need to upgrade, or I need to renovate, or I need to buy another investment property. And that's a really big pressure here in Australia.
Yeah. And you're reporting on market trends all the time. So from what you guys are seeing, what is kind of a rough snapshot of what you think the property market will do within the next 2 years?
Oh, it's so hard to sort of forecast things like that. But I think in the immediate future at least, we had inflation figures out yesterday, so it's looking very likely now that we're going to have an interest rate cut in February. The market's pricing it in, I think, about 90%. So that will be big in a lot of ways because we've been waiting for that for ages. And it does mean that there'll be more borrowing power for people, and that means we'll see, I think, more people come back into the market looking to buy, particularly first home buyers. So it'll probably push prices up a little bit again, even though we were starting to see growth slowing. So that'll be really interesting to watch. It's also going to have a huge impact on our government, because I think the Labor are waiting for that to happen. I think they're hoping that will happen because it'll make them look a lot better with voters. At the moment, they're not looking great. So that could change everything. And it means they'll go to the election with a lot more housing policies as well, and probably more incentives. So it is our biggest pillar of the economy, housing in Australia. Like, the banks hold, so 60% of the debt the banks hold is housing related. So that's how important it is to the economy. The government know that. Everyone knows that. A third of Australians have a mortgage. So it's just such a huge impact. So I think we'll see that. It depends how many. A lot of economists are saying maybe 3 rate cuts this year, which will make quite a big difference. I think 1 rate cut, they say the minimum you can save is about $100 a month on your mortgage, which is, no one's going to say no to that. Might not seem like a lot to some, but it's still going to help. So I think, that will have a real impact. I think it's going to be a big year for first home buyers for that reason. Rates coming down. There's lots of incentives out there now, government incentives. There's a lot of reasons why to help you get into the market. Investors are also coming off quite a lot because particularly in places like Victoria, the land tax The government's very anti-investor. They're not getting quite as strong capital gains as they were seeing, so they're pulling back a little bit. And all those factors, I think, mean it's a great time to try and get in the market if you're a first home buyer. It's just that deposit that's the problem. So unfortunately, unless you've got kind of help from family, it's very hard. But I do think we'll see more first home buyers this year. We're not going to see the growth that we'd seen in the last couple of years from COVID. That was extraordinary. Thank goodness we probably won't see that. Although if you own a home, you'd be hoping for that. I think it'll be, Sydney, Melbourne, I think are going to go down a bit in price this year, but I think we'll just slow a little bit. We might see some ticks up with rate rises, but then, I don't see us going down at all, but we just maybe will coast along a little bit more until, I don't know, close to the Olympics when I think we will see a little bit more of a spike again because it'll be that excitement of us hosting the Olympics. We'll see some actual infrastructure being completed by then, migration continuing to come in. It's definitely the place to be in terms of the property market, I think, Southeast Queensland.
Okay. And then, so potentially a good time for first home buyers coming up if they have some help. Property investing, either from a rent vesting perspective or is it still a good idea for people to look at investment properties?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, don't take advice from me. I am still just a journalist. I just go by what I'm told and the people I speak to. So, definitely don't take my word for it. But I think it is, if you do your research, that's primarily what it comes down to. There's still some really good returns to be made. I think you've just got to really look at where we can get some good rental returns and get some good capital growth and look at it as a long game. I think, someone always said to me, never sell if you can help it. Unless you absolutely have to sell a property, don't. Just buy and hold on to it for as long as you possibly can. On average, they say you'll double your money every 10 years with that. And there's still, rents are still high. You can still get some really good rent. At the moment, I think if you're looking, the advice, we sort of hear time and time again from people I speak to is look for places with strong employment, where there's good transport, good amenities, schools, infrastructure going in. So there's a lot of those regional areas that are being noted a lot at the moment by a lot of the analysts and investor advisors that I'm talking to. So Townsville in particular, everyone's saying this year is going to be a really big year for Townsville. It's still affordable, but it's got a lot of potential, a lot of growth potential. A lot of things are happening on that marina there, a lot of new developments, residential developments. So, that could be a place to look at. But then on the other side, they say buy somewhere close to where you live and that you know as well, so that, if there are any repairs that have to be made, that you can be close by to do that. So there's all sorts of advice out there for it. But I definitely think it's still a good idea if you can comfortably afford it. And, negative gearing is just... We're lucky as a country to have that available to us, and that's just made for investing, really. If you can use that to your advantage, then why not?
Yeah, so you mentioned repairs. What are some of the other hidden costs that people that are looking to buy an investment property for the first time might not be aware of?
Yeah, that's definitely one. A lot of the time if you buy an investment property, it's often a unit that's might be all you can afford, and then, you've got to look at body corporate. That's huge. Always check out the sinking fund with that. I always find that's important, how much is in their sinking fund, because, there's a lot of building repairs that need to be made sometimes. But, you've got water, you've got rates, all those kind of things to think about. I don't even own an investment property yet. I own my own apartment, but... that's kind of sort of something I'm looking at. And, I think there's definitely going to be costs associated, but you can offset that a lot of the time with things like negative gearing. And if you've got enough rent coming in to at least match your outgoings, then I think you're going to go okay.
DIY renovations, I feel like TV and social media makes it seem super easy, super quick. What are your thoughts on the reality of that?
Oh, I think it's terrible. I don't know how people do it, actually. I interview couples all the time who live through them, and with children sometimes. They don't even move out of the house. So they'll be doing their washing up in the bathtub and while the kitchen's getting done. I guess it's character building, and people love it. People actually love it. And they'll finish one project and then just can't wait to move on to the next one. There's so many people out there doing that. But I think, it's not for everyone. It certainly doesn't appeal to me. I'd rather get a professional come in and do it. But there's so many little things you can do. And I definitely think a cosmetic reno is worth doing if you are going to sell. I mean, presentation is everything in the end. Even though they say you shouldn't buy with your emotions, you just do. You can't help getting that involved. So definitely when it comes to just painting, maybe redoing the carpets, just small kind of additions that you can make, small repairs you can make, even changing little things like, taps or doorknobs, just to kind of freshen things up a little bit without spending a ridiculous amount of money. I think that's really worth doing if you've had a property for a while and you're wanting to sell without you having to spend too much money. I think you can really get away with doing that. But anything that involves plumbing or those kind of jobs, I think, no, I definitely think get the experts in for that, even though it's very hard to get trades at the moment and you're waiting a long time for it. And I mean, we did a story recently about the costs of renovations. And I think, you can't get a bathroom done now for less than 5,000 a square metre, and that would be the absolute basic bathroom, the minimum. So, a small bathroom is probably 6 square metres. So, you're looking at 30
grand.
Yeah, and then if that's the absolute minimum, say you want to put some really nice finishings in, a standalone bath, a nice tub, then you're looking at double that easy. So you're looking at 60 grand for a bathroom now. In a kitchen, you'd be looking at 100. So it's not cheap, but that's where I guess doing it yourself could come into it. But it's just, I think you want to have a trade in the family or someone to help you out with it, because I don't know, I wouldn't want to take that on. And most of the couples I talk to who are doing it, they generally are, the husband's a tradie or something, so that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy for me as well. And I come from a family of tradies, so I know that I am not skilled. Like, I know that I'm not. But I'll go to Bunnings and I'll be looking at flooring or tiles and yeah, sure. I saw a reel on Instagram and they flipped it and I was like, yeah, I could do that. And I'd have to pause and be like, no, you absolutely couldn't. You would drive yourself insane even trying. Yeah. But I think, there's probably so many people that start those DIY renovations and then have to call in support real quick because the reality of it is hard.
Yeah. I have spoken to some people who've had to do that as well. But pause halfway through and I don't know. But a lot of people are doing it because it's so expensive to buy at the moment. So even if you're going to get a good price for your house selling in this market, which is true, you've still got to buy in the same market. So you're going to have to put out as much, if not more, money to buy again, and the costs associated with selling. So a lot of people are just saying, well, look, we'll stay put because we want to stay in the area we are rather than have to, if they did have to buy again, move out further to get something cheaper. And so they're just deciding, we'll just improve, and they're sticking it out and waiting for the builders or giving it a go themselves. And shows like The Block, they do well for a reason. It's the only free-to-air show that actually really still rates. And that's why Channel 9 knows that. That's why they keep it. But people do love it for some reason. I think it's just improving the home. And COVID really, really drove that home. We're spending so much time at home, and home offices have become like an essential in our home now, almost. It never used to be a big thing, but most people want that. When they've got a list of things that they want in the house that they're going to buy, a home office is definitely one of them because you are spending so much time there. So, you're wanting to invest in a good home office, you're wanting to invest in nicer things because you're spending more time at home. So I get it. I definitely get it. But, it's still hard work.
You've been into some extreme properties. Can you tell me about what's the most expensive property that you've been into?
Oh, gosh. Probably one of them would have to be the penthouse at the top of the Soul building here on the coast that's owned by Simon Beard from Culture Kings. It's amazing. So it's on the market for $30 million and it's got incredible views, 3 levels. You do feel like you're sort of floating above the ocean. It is an amazing property. But I guess, people in that price bracket, it gets a little bit slimmer in terms of buyers. So he's still trying to sell that one. But I know he's built another place in Ashmore that's even bigger and apparently has a go-kart track. So I'd like to see that one. But that one was pretty cool. I feel like I've seen so many. It's really hard. I'm a bit of a sucker for the really nice Federation style homes, which are a lot in Brisbane that have been beautifully maintained. So there's one sort of not far from me in New Farm on Elliston Road, Elliston House. It just sold for 10.7, but it was just, the beautiful ceiling roses and cornices and just the VJ walls. And it's just a lot of maintenance to keep those properties, but they're so beautiful and very gone with the windish. Yeah, there's a lot of nice ones around Noosa at the moment too, sort of just outside Noosa Heads around Doonan. I've been to a couple of amazing ones. One sold recently called Whitbird, sold for 11.5, and it was just like architecturally amazing. The landscape was beautiful in terms of looking out just over the Glasshouse Mountains, but it was very seamless, very clean, lots of travertine, clean lines and minimalist. The vanities in the bathrooms were carved out of whole slabs of marble, just a lot of detail, which is really popular at the moment. I mean, here you'd see on the Gold Coast there's a lot of the Palm Springs style, which is still very, very popular, lots of arches and Venetian plaster. That's still really popular. So I'm seeing a lot of homes like that. It's funny, like I think once a style comes in, a lot of people like to replicate that. You'd think people wouldn't want to have the same house as someone else, but they really do quite like it. It's like when the Hampton style came in and everyone wanted a Hamptons house. And so there's a lot of those in some suburbs of Brisbane that all look quite the same. So I kind of like ones that are a little bit different. I've been through so many, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's hard to remember a lot of them. But yeah, some of those Noosa ones are amazing. There's been some great ones here. Lots of penthouses. That's been a big thing, I think, since COVID, people wanting to just live in a whole floor apartment, but the size of a house and still luxury with beautiful views. So there's been a couple of those in Brisbane. The Emporium Hotel is the one on top of that. That's also got a $30 million price tag, still for sale. And you get a 24-hour concierge with that. So people are looking for kind of the extras that you can get with the lock up and leave base in Brisbane. That would be, that would be someone's base, and they'd have another house down the beach, of course. And it's interesting to see how the other half live. But there's definitely, there's a lot of money out there, and a lot of savings from COVID, a lot of equity that was built up during that time in houses, and people are able to upgrade or they're downsizing. A lot of money that baby boomers have now that they're using to buy some of these incredible homes. And yeah, I'm very fortunate that I get to see inside some of them.
I'm sure there's no DIY happening in those properties.
Not, no.
But there's a difference, right, between something that's aesthetically really beautiful and something that feels like a home.
Yeah, that's true. Actually.
What kind of properties or what kind of characteristics do you think can take something that's a house and turn it into a home?
There's got to be warmth. Some sort of an injection of warmth, whether that's through the use of timber, textures. I really think sort of textured materials really helps to bring that through, whether that's, in wallpapers or just in furnishings. You can really mix that up. I do like the clean line sort of minimalist look, but sometimes it can look a little bit sanitised. So I think it's important to also sort of bring a little bit of colour in here and there. And it might be like some feature spots of colour, like a feature wall or, even cushions or throws or things like that can just bring a little bit more warmth into it. And it depends on the environment. If you're, if it's a coastal house, those cool colours sort of work because you've got the sunshine anyway, which kind of warms things up. And you also, you want it to look a little bit lived in. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, people who are selling it so hard, they've got to keep it looking pristine all the time, which is important, but I don't think it matters if it does look a little bit lived in or comfortable. You want a good couch. You want a comfy couch, not one that you actually can sit in and live in. You don't just want one that looks great. Yeah. I think you need a good comfy couch. It's good if you can afford it to have like a butler's pantry so you can have all the mess put away and then you've got the show kitchen and the same, you can have a rumpus room where you can have a little bit more mess and then you've got a formal lounge. But that's not something everyone can do. So that's why I think like for us ordinary people, just going with some textured materials, a few, warm colours, definitely some nice sort of timbers and natural materials always works well, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. I feel like having just some lamps in rooms as well. Like
light is
the
huge.
lighting
You're
can
right.
It can change the feel of a space.
Definitely. Definitely that kind of, and the tone of the light as well. Like, not white and fluorescent. Definitely more the warm tones. But yeah, decorative light bulbs are so common to buy now, and just lamps, lots of that. Yeah, that's a good one.
I feel like anyone that's currently renting and craving to buy a house, that's a life goal that's probably not going to go away for them. But you've met a lot of the owners that have these $30 million, $10 million properties. Does having a property like that actually make them any happier?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I'd like to think that material things don't make you happy. Just from my own experience, I know, we're in a world where we're constantly wanting more because there's so much choice out there, and it's all about keeping up with the Joneses and having to have the best of everything. But I think, even just like little things, when you buy something new, you might get that instant gratification, but in the long term, it doesn't actually fill a void if you are unhappy, or it doesn't, I think, increase your happiness. I do honestly believe that doesn't come from having a nice house. No. I think probably the simpler you live, the happier you are. And I think, other countries, more third world countries, prove that when you see the quality of life in terms of just some of how happy some of those people are in those communities, right? It's really easy to say that and hard to live that way in the world we're in. But I think as long as you've got enough, that's all you need to really be happy. The extra things are great. And it's so hard because, I don't want to sort of say there's anything wrong with having that, because if you've got the money to and you can do it, then go for it. But yeah, I think it's a difference between doing that or maybe doing it as a status symbol as well, which I think there is a lot of that in Australia that goes with property. We want to sort of, a house is a reflection of who you are a little bit, which it shouldn't be, I don't think. It's just a house at the end of the day. And as we talk about making it a home, I mean, that comes down to you and your relationships, and your relationship with yourself, and just you definitely get happiness, I think, from doing more for other people and those kind of things than material things like that. But that's just a personal preference. I couldn't tell you whether or not the owners of these homes are happier or
Yeah. I know when my partner and I were going through the journey of buying our home, we were looking at how far do we stretch ourselves with this mortgage? And we ended up coming up with the phrase in our head of like, what does a Wednesday night look like? And a Wednesday night is going to look the same to us, whether we're in property A or property B. And then so it just kind of helped to bring it home of like, well, we still want to be able to travel. We still want to be able to go out for dinners and have this sort of flexibility. And so stretching ourselves to have the most expensive mortgage or most expensive house we could have just didn't align with us because, like I said, our Wednesday nights would still be the same regardless.
Well, that's a really good way of looking at it. And I think you've got to make sure that you can still maintain that lifestyle. That's why I think, don't give in to the pressure to get into the market just for the sake of it, because, if you're stressing month to month to try and pay that bill and you've had to curb your lifestyle so much that then you are going to be unhappy, to be honest. That will affect your happiness. And having that big house just for that won't. And I mean, we are seeing a lot of financial stress. I know just from speaking to agents and some of the figures that divorce rates are going up again, similar to the rates that we saw in COVID, which was from people spending time together, whereas this one is actually financial stress. And generally that's because of cost of living pressures and mortgage pressures because rates have been so high. So having that nice house and having all that debt is not worth it in that perspective at all. So I think you really have to think about that when you're going to buy a house. And also your travelling distance to things, like it makes a big difference if you can get to work quickly from wherever you live, because you're saving so much time in your day. You're getting back a lot more time, and time is so precious, I think. So that would be a factor. Like I know a lot of people commute, but at least I think a lot of people who commute now maybe only do it twice a week if they live here and they work in Brisbane. Then that's not so bad because they're compromising a bit because they've got their beach lifestyle maybe that they really want to be able to go in. Drive a couple of days a week to get that. So, but that can be a big thing. Think about how long it's going to take you to get to work if you are going to buy somewhere too. I think is really important.
Yeah.
So rent vesting in that perspective is still really good. Like for first home buyers, I think it's a great idea. Like buy an investment property somewhere you don't want to live, but in an area that's growing, like, you know, Ipswich, Logan, huge growth potential in those areas. Townsville, as I mentioned, and yeah, you might not want to live there, but try buying maybe a cheaper investment property there and renting in Brisbane or on the Gold Coast or wherever you want. And yeah, I think why not do that for a while? You don't have to buy your first home and live in it. Like, it doesn't have to be the way to go. So really think about your options.
Yeah. And I think it's so unique to the individual. Like, it's easy to get caught up in, like we were saying before, oh, here's my trajectory of life. So go to uni, get a job, get married, have kids, buy a house, like all these things. But just taking a moment to step back and be like, well, is that really what I want? And if yes, how does it support my lifestyle?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. I think, it's easier said than done. I mean, it's good if you can recognise that early on to just stop and not worry about what other people think and just think, what do I really want? And go ahead with that and, not feel the pressure to have to do everything because, I mean, I remember I certainly gave into that, I think, early on in a lot of ways, and in the end it doesn't, you end up finding out later on it wasn't good. It's, you're not happy as a result of it. And so I probably learned a bit later those things. But I think that's all right, as long as you sort of learn at some point that just to do your own thing, don't follow the crowd, do what works for you and your lifestyle. And it really, no, as you said, it's a lot of pressure out there to keep up with the Joneses. I can imagine it's even worse with kids at schools and kids today having to compare themselves on social media with other. That, thank goodness, didn't have to grow up with that. Like, that's just another world, I think, having to worry about. But yeah.
You live a pretty hectic life with multiple social media accounts, like work, and life is crazy busy. What do you do to reset?
Lately, it's probably been a lot on my social media. I've been doing hot and cold therapy,
nice.
Which I've been loving. I do think it really helps. So for me, it's kind of, good thing to put the phone away. I can't really do anything. So it's just sitting in a sauna for, 20 minutes, sweating it out, and then getting into the cold and shocking your body. And I kind of like the challenge of it too, I think, because sort of that personality. So I'm just like trying as long as I can to stay in the cold. And I don't know, I've been doing that a couple of times a week for a couple of months now, and I do feel like it's helped my sleep and just general sort of stress levels a little bit. So that's what I've been doing to reset a lot lately. I try and keep my weekends work-free. Try. Yeah, it's hard though. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a balance at the moment with the full-time job at News, which is already quite busy, and then running the other business. Sometimes I sort of think, I've got to choose one or the other at some point. But they also complement each other so well, so that's why it kind of works well. But that's all right. I enjoy it. Like, I really do. I like it. I don't think I do well not being busy, but I think you've definitely got to take that time to then recharge. I'm not sort of naturally an extrovert, and it might come across that way on camera and in a lot of ways, and I do love to be social, but I really need that time to myself. And so come the end of the week, I need to have at least one day where I'm really just not doing a lot. I think that's usually a Sunday for me, where I'll sleep in and go and do a sauna sesh, catch up with friends or family, read a good book, even get a bit creative, something that takes you away from thinking all the time, having to be on all the time, checking emails all the time, and
What advice do you have to anyone that's thinking, I want to start building a personal brand online and I want to start showing up? Because I feel like that's a way that you're really promoting your business now. There's such a big online component. What tips do you have to anyone who's just starting out?
I think just be consistent is the main thing. Yeah. So when I started, I think the other thing is really just focusing on what you're good at and what you're trying to put across and the audience you're trying to target. So I think when I started, I was just putting a whole mishmash of things on there, and it was getting a bit lost. I wasn't really sure what I was trying to promote or do. And then I realised, oh no, I think I've got this property thing is worth focusing on, and there's a bit of a niche here. And so, yeah, I just consistently tried posting once a day, regularly on stories. And it's got to be high quality content, I think, too. You know, you want good quality images, good quality video. Infographics are great. They really resonate with audiences. And if you don't have time to do that, get someone to help you. There's so many companies out there now that specialise in your social media. But I think, yeah, it has been huge. It's where all my work comes from. I don't even have a website. So it's just been a great marketing tool in that regard. And also just interacting and engaging with followers, collaborating with other brands and businesses that are in that space is really big. So, you know, use other people to leverage off a bit, but also, you know, help them out as well. Maybe you can work with them in some capacity and post something together, then great. I think that really works. So I do that quite regularly. Work with lots of different videography companies, lots of different clients, and often, yeah, post in collaboration with other property portals. So whatever your niche is, just try and focus on that. Reach out to some of those other people in the same space as you. And then, yeah, I think the engaging back and forth with your community is important as well. It's time consuming. So, yeah, it's something you have to really commit to if you're going to do it, or pay someone else to do it. But, yeah, it's you do, yeah, it's not just kind of something you can be flippant about. I think the consistency is the real key with it.
Yeah, and like we talked about at the start, it would be easy to look at, oh, Liz, she's got such a great social media following. She's at all these beautiful houses and these brand partnerships and things. But again, that's not luck.
Absolutely not. No, I started out with hardly any followers. It's taken a long time. And, yeah, just very organically, slowly grown that, really. Yeah, it's been a lot of hard work and building the brand and, yeah, being professional in the space and a lot of word of mouth. But, yeah, constantly kind of keeping a presence on there is important, but it definitely hasn't been luck. No, I've definitely... In fact, I probably could reach out for help a lot more than I have, I think. I really enjoy it, though. I think, you know, I quite like creating content. It is obviously a whole job in itself, you know, that people do these days, but it can be a lot of fun, and you can express your personality a lot through your social media too. It really is a visual representation of yourself, so you've got to remember that, whatever you're putting up. I mean, gosh, employers now look first to your social media before hiring you, so it's really important that you are careful with what you put up as well. Yeah. It's tough. You sort of nowhere to hide anymore. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I would just say. Chip away. Really know your audience. So stick with kind of your one or three. I always say no more than 3 topics or 3 things that you're really good at or want to put across, and stick to that. Don't kind of go putting everything on there, or people just get a bit lost. Consistent. Know what your audience is, and collaborating and engaging with others, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. And just building that community.
Of people who know they can go to your account to get sort of regular updates on whatever you're wanting to specialise in. And so, yeah, it's just keeping them informed and keeping them abreast of trends of whatever you're doing and keeping their attention. It's hard. Like there's a lot of noise online now, you know. It's harder and harder to kind of stand out from it. There's lots of sort of tips that you can get. Like, I don't know, there's always different reports on how many hashtags you should put up or what kind of hashtags you should put up, you know, which resonates better, and how long your reels should be. That sort of changes a lot. I guess you just kind of do what you think works. Like really check your insights and your analytics all the time. See which ones get the most views or the most clicks, and then try and replicate that. You know, that's what works, what people are viewing the most. That's obviously what they want. So keep producing more of that. That's kind of how we work at News with stories. Every day we get a analysis of the performance of the stories we wrote the day before, how many subscriptions they got, how many people read that story. We can find that out, and then we're like, okay, that did well, so we'll do more on Adrian Tilley. You know, people seem to love him and his flashcards and his properties, so we do a lot on him. It's kind of just about giving people what they want now, what the consumer wants. Yeah, works the same for social media. Yep,
and know your numbers. Yeah. We've talked about a lot today. We've talked about real estate, property trends, life as a journalist, life as an influencer online, all the good stuff. Yeah. Is there anything you wish more people in the world knew?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? I think sort of similar to what I was saying before, I think don't get caught up in the world that we, I think, are coming into more and more, which is just so image focused and so materialistic. It's unfortunately, I think, good people get lost in that a lot of the time. Don't forget your values. I think they're the most important things you can have throughout life. Really know what your values are. Sometimes it's hard to identify them when you're younger, but I think once you really do identify them, then just stay true to them. I think that's the most important thing. And then you end up, I think, going down the right path inevitably of life. So, and hopefully that means you're a good person and you do good in the world and in life.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. And I like to ask my guests, is there a book that's had a really positive impact on your life that you think more people should have on their shelf?
You did mention this briefly before and I had to look it up to just check what it was. So remind me. I read this when I was on a retreat, actually, a health retreat. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who you've probably heard of. Yeah. And it was just fascinating. There's lots of books about changing your way of thinking, but this really looked into the data and the studies behind cognitive behavioural therapy and how you can literally change your neuroplasticity. Like your brain can change the way you think. You can literally change that if you really want to. Yeah. And I think, for people who, more and more of us suffer from mental health these days or depression or anxiety just because life is so stressful. And I think being able to train your brain to sort of think more positively or handle stress better or, handle life better is just so important. And so that was pretty life-changing for me reading that, because I just thought, really thinking about how you consume information, how you take on criticism, how you react to other people's words. It's all something you can control, and your emotions and how you can. That's something you can control. You can't control what other people do, but if you can control how you react and respond, I think that's really sets you up well for life. So that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Well, Liz, it's been so nice having you on the Reset podcast today. I will link to the book. I will link to your social, everything in the show notes. But thank you again. It's been so nice.
I hope I've been able to give some insights. As I said, I'm more, ultimately a journalist who specialise in property, but I don't have all the answers when it comes to property, but I like to talk about it and definitely, hope it's helped a little bit.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think if anyone's craving some of that property porn we talked about, your social media is packed with it, so they will definitely come and have a scroll.
That's true. Thank you.
Thank you again.